Welcome, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. I'm your producer and host of the show, Dr. Lino Martinez. This is your motivational podcast of people's incredible journeys. Oh, yeah, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody, to the A Little Less Fear podcast. Today, I would love to welcome Kyleigh Weathers, is the creator of Queerly Attached, a business that is dedicated to providing attachment trauma recovery resources for the LGBTQ plus community. Yeah. Kyleigh is an attachment coach after being certified by the Personal Development School Integrated Attachment Theory Training. Between Kyleigh's personal life experience and training, Kyleigh is an expert guide to help you get back from the path of self-abandonment. I love this. Welcome, Kyleigh, to A Little Less Fear podcast. Nice to meet you.
Hey, thanks, Doc. I appreciate it. Can I call you Doc? I kind of love that.
Yeah, I love it too, actually. I love Doc.
I'm going to go with that. I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be a good chat, I think.
So, Kyleigh, you've got such an incredible journey here. What brought you into where you're currently at? I mean, we can talk about your journey in any angle, wherever you'd like to start, but whatever makes you comfortable. What brought you to where you're at today?
Well, you shared with me before we hit record, just kind of what brought you to podcasting. And I think we'll just start there, like how I'm ending up as a guest on podcasts. Like,
yeah, right.
Really, you mentioned the self-abandoning. I know that's part of my intro, but it really is what my life experience came from, was just this path of self-abandonment, not choosing me, because that would mean abandonment or rejection. And I joke and say I was born a lesbian and raised a Mormon, and those two things don't naturally fit together.
Right.
So being raised in that religion really did kind of set the perfectionist, the people pleasing, just this inability to be alone, because it felt like not being seen, like not being witnessed felt awful.
Oh, yeah.
And so my life just kind of trended towards relationship hopping, relationship chasing. Like if being single meant I must be failing somehow at this thing. And as I began like really starting to understand my sexuality, and I went through my in and out with the Mormon church, it took a spinal cord injury for my body to finally just be like, yo, we are not walking aligned. Like, this is not it. And you've shared really vulnerably about your injury. But for me, that moment, it was almost 11 years ago. In April, it'll be 11 years. And that is what really just like kind of was the brakes for everything for me to really sit with, how did I get here? Instead of like, how come it's going this way? It really became like, how did I choose to be in the spaces that I'm at right now?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Kyleigh, as you're saying that. It's just, I mean, I really feel what you're saying, but it's what's interesting is that this happens to a lot of people, where it takes some type of trauma, whether it's emotional or physical trauma, for us to sit down and really take a look at our life and see where we're going. When you were in this spinal cord injury, I guess, frame of energy that you were experiencing, when did you actually realize, like, this is the opportunity for me to sit down and figure out what's going on? Because it's hard to get there when you're in pain.
It is. And I probably would have said unfortunate, but I don't believe that now. It truly took me, I said it's been 11 years. It took me till the 9th anniversary to realize how much suffering I had added to the trauma, to the loss.
9 years.
And so much of that suffering was going on in my head. So let me kind of set the scene. So I'm 30 years old. I've been in and out of a queer marriage. We were married in 2008 in California when it was legal for like a second. And then she left me to go back to the church, the Mormon church. And it was just another flip moment. Like I say, my world just flipped, and it's like, what do? Like you have to pick which pieces to pick up and move through it. I've always had this, like, we have to keep moving thing about me. And for me at that time in my life, I made the choice to also return to that church, because it meant getting my family back, getting community back, being accepted. I could stay best friends with my ex, which is like every lesbian's dream, right? And so it became all of a sudden this like prodigal son return, in a way, where I was back in the church, and I was I was doing the thing and I got married in the temple to a man and we had a child together. And the good news is I still very much love my child. And this man, he's no longer my partner in that sense, but he's a fantastic co-parent. Like I did good picking, and even that path in itself had conflict and pain, but we chose each other as
Yes.
far as like, let's see how happy we really can be as ourselves. We chose each other, even though that meant not choosing the relationship. So he and I, though, at this point with the injury, we're a year and a half married. My child's 6 months old, and I wake up screaming from a nap. Like I wake up paralyzed. I was asleep, and it was like the worst pain. I mean, it was just
This
horrific.
is
And
after you had the baby?
after I had the baby, 6 months old. It's like a Sunday. We're supposed to go to my husband's parents for dinner, and I'm woken up from this nap just in horrific pain, and realized pretty quickly like I can't feel anything. You mentioned the sacral, like everything for me was shut down as well. I couldn't urinate, nothing, like nothing worked, and couldn't walk. I couldn't sit. I couldn't stand. Like it was just very out of nowhere and like what is happening now. I had a history of bad back stuff, and so we went to the ER, and really quickly they were like, you're drug seeking, and they didn't buy it. And that was kind of where I started to learn to advocate. And fortunately, that ER, they discharged me even when I couldn't urinate. They still discharged me. And I started Googling, and I found this really rare spinal thing. And I was like, I think this is what it is. We've got to go somewhere else. Like this says it's an emergency. I can be paralyzed forever. So we drive an hour. We're in rural Georgia. We drive to another hospital. Same thing. ER's like, we don't know what it is, but it might be a kidney stone, which is what the other ER had said. And I was like, this is not a kidney stone. There's something really wrong going on with my body.
Yeah.
And we had chosen that hospital because I had a doctor appointment there 4 days past that date with a neurosurgeon because my back had been acting up, but nothing like this.
Mm.
So we go to that hospital, a miracle happens. I end up in front of this neurosurgeon, and I literally have my phone up. I'm like, I think I have this. He's like, you definitely have this, and we've got to operate now. And there was no explanation for what happened. He said when he got in there, it just looked like disc fragments, looked like grenade pieces just all over, had
Wow.
compressed the bottom of my spinal cord, which shut everything down. Well, he fixed the emergency, but I had been basically out of surgery for it took 70 hours to get me on the table, which was too long. So I had nerve damage down my right side, couldn't urinate. Everything was still pretty fucked up. And it crushed me. It took me out, man. I was an athlete. I was an active person. I love life. I love to play. I was so excited to be a new mom. And it just took me out. I lost my job. I ended up on disability. It took me a good 3 years to really be back up on my feet. And then it was several surgeries later. I have a spinal cord injury that now I have a pain pump for and a spinal cord stimulator. And that's what I say got me upright. Okay. Horrible story. I was 30, right? Okay.
Yeah.
When I say it took me out, I was on a lot of medication. I was in a lot of pain. There was a lot of just non-answers for what had happened.
Yeah.
And it looked nothing now. The future looked nothing like what I had thought it was going to be, of course. And like I mentioned, I chose the right guy to get married to, and he was there. He was a rock. When we had an infant, right? Now I've gone from like I have this new baby to now I can't hold this new baby, and I'm in a hospital bed in the living room, and a walker, and I was on a cane for years, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to hold everything that had happened, plus everything I had just come through with coming back into the church and losing the situation that I thought I had with that marriage. It just was a lot. And truthfully, I may do, and you would say I was a resilient one, but I was miserable in my head. And I knew that I was just this like broken body. That's how I talked about it. I had this broken leg, this bad leg, this
Yeah.
bad back, and it's always going to do this or that. And
Mhm.
as the ninth anniversary came around, I was like, fuck, like the rage would just build around that month, even the months before, like Facebook would remind you of what memories. And
Mhm.
by the ninth year, I just was so raged about it all. And it just felt so, and my body's tingling now, like remembering it. Like it felt so unjust. And as I really sat with how that felt, it hit me like next year will be the 10-year. And I just thought about that Kyleigh. Like I literally thought about that future Kyleigh, and I was like, I don't want I don't want her to feel like that at the 10-year mark. Like, I can't hold that I have allowed it to feel this way for
Yeah,
10 years.
for almost 10 years. Yeah,
A
wow.
decade felt really long. And I made the choice then. Okay, if it's not going to be that, it's got to be something else. So let's dig in. And that really is what set me on the like, let's get down to it. Because I had everything I just shared with you is like obviously very deep internal shit, right? Like
Yeah,
my life over the 10 years still ended up having miracles and all of that, but it all had this like tinge about it. Nothing was like real. It didn't feel real. It felt like I was just making do with what the hand that had been given me.
yeah.
And so when the 10-year rolled around, it passed and the anniversary passed and nothing. I didn't even remember. I was in the midst of creating Queerly Attached because at that moment, when I made the decision to go in deep, it was like I finally jumped at that fear of like, why can't you handle your thoughts? Why do you have to be so busy? Why do you have to be so engaged with others? Why does connection like the end all be all? And I just got hella curious instead of so goddamn judgy, like just so judgy.
Right. Yeah,
And I got
judging yourself.
curious, and
Yeah.
like meeting myself was the best and most painful experience I've ever had.
I love how you say that, meeting myself. And
Mm.
when you hit your 9-year mark, were you still in that marriage? Were you still in the marriage?
No, so we actually we left the church together in 2018,
Mhm.
which was so I'm so fortunate that we left together, to be honest. It was so good to have that support. Um and he shares that like it seemed as if when we left the church it was like someone took a cloak off me and it was kind of like there's Kyleigh. And not so much that I was now as this like rainbow queer, but like more of like I felt out of this box because down to whether you're gay or not, I mean, it just there's something about like when you know that you're different and you accept it, man, you fucking shine.
Mhm.
Like you just can't help but radiate authenticity.
Yeah,
And
right.
so leaving that framework of the church that had felt just so full of shame was like my moment to really like stretch and like how much space can I take up? And we both grew in that way, and the impact of that of course has just been being able to raise this child. He was 5, our son was 5 when we left the church, and he's almost 12, and he has just
Wow.
this emotional maturity and like depth to him, and I know it's because we grew through that and like let him see the growth. It was, yeah, I'm proud of my little family. I am proud of us.
That's really incredible story, Kylie. Thanks for being so raw, open,
Yeah, no
and real with
problem.
us and like
Yeah,
sharing your story.
it's like I can't help but talk about it. I mean, that is what led to Queerly Attached was like the moment I started disconnecting my emotions with my thoughts and like giving each their due time and like
Yeah.
validation, I started to realize how much of the suffering really was coming from myself. Yes, I have pain. Yes, I'm a spinal cord injury patient and I will always have these things, but the way that I think about them was creating so much more suffering
So how do you
and
think
pain.
about them now versus how you thought about it before?
So I mentioned I used to call it like my bad back, my bad leg. Started calling it my healing leg. All of a sudden, I'm noticing that my leg's feeling not as tired, or I'm standing up straighter than I was, or I'm noticing that there are moments without pain that
Yeah.
maybe were always there, but I hadn't allowed them, if
Right.
that
Yeah.
makes sense, right? Even when I would notice, this was before the shift, like even when I would notice pain, I know now I think gratitude and grief are companions, but even when I would feel the gratitude, pretty
Yeah.
quickly then it would be filled with like it's such bullshit that I can't even like have a day without, right? Like it's so fast
Right. Oh
for
yeah.
those thoughts to be like, look at what a victim you are, man. And
Yeah.
it was a horrible injury and there's still no explanation for it, but I decided to stop being victimized by it. I
Mhm.
just knew that wasn't the type of life I envisioned for my future. And so if that means there's another timeline somewhere that I'm picturing. And so I know now all I got to do is get in line with it, right? And start
Yeah.
walking the steps. Now that I
Right.
get that, I'm out here creating it's anything I want, man. That's the joy of this, right? Like you said with
That
your
is the joy.
podcast, like
Yeah.
downloads come and you deliver, and the universe will show up for you when you do that. It's such a blessing, truthfully, to understand now that that's what it's about out here. Like it just makes it shinier. I don't know.
It really
Shiny is the right
does
word
make it
for me,
shiny.
I
You
guess.
are shining, Kylie. I love it. You're
Well,
glowing.
thanks.
I love
It's
the
like
glow.
this is daylight, you know. Thanks.
Absolutely
Yeah,
love it.
man.
Have you had the opportunity to look back? Because you've mentioned a few times that the spinal cord injury came out of nowhere, came out of nowhere. Have you had
Mm.
any type of downloads or messages or
Mm.
feelings as to what may have created that?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that I've like put it entirely in phrases, so I'll try that here, but I really do think that it was a hard stop. I
Mhm.
think that the meaning that I've given it, which is all that is we're out here doing, right, is giving meaning to things. So the
Absolutely.
meaning I've chosen that serves my belief better
There you go.
is that my body wasn't going to do any more self-abandoning. And I
Oh, I
had
love that.
so much fear,
Hmm.
I know now,
Yeah.
around what it meant to be a mom.
Hmm. Mm.
And I mean, I feel the emotion coming up. It's it's in my chest, it's in my throat. The fear was that how was I going to raise this little human in the way that I knew I wanted to, which is to say that he would get a chance to create who he is instead of being like told who he is.
Yeah.
But I wasn't living that way. And if there's like one thing that I don't have a tolerance for, it's inauthenticity. I have,
Mhm.
even in that time where I was like, I am Mormon, and this, it's like, I was so authentic about it. I truly believed I was walking this path that I was meant to be doing. I have no aversion to pivoting. If you really hear my whole story, I'm not scared to pivot. And if I think it's the right path, I'll persevere. And I think my body was like, fuck you, because it knew I
Mhm.
would just keep
Right.
it pushing. And like I said, there were like little signs, but I don't believe that anything else would have stopped me unless it was
What
that
kind of little
impactful.
signs?
Um, well, so I had had a herniated disc 7 years prior. That was the initial injury, which was another came out of nowhere. Um, and it knocked me off my feet for about a good 2 weeks, and then it would just keep re-herniating. And so I started doing, epidural injections and those things, and they would do fine. Um, but I had tweaked my back months before this injury in April. So the months before, like let's say December, January, I tweaked it. And I noticed that my foot had kind of started dragging, or I was tripping up the stairs. Like there was weird stuff happening with my leg, but
Yeah.
I was just like, it's sciatica, like it always is. Like I was just kind of, and
Yeah.
it wasn't until I went on a work trip and
Hmm.
I came home in a wheelchair because just the walk through the airport had just knocked me out when I was like, I have to see a doctor, like something's wrong. And that was when I started reaching out for neurosurgeons. And that's what's like when I really think about the timing of it all, the actual neurosurgeon date that I had scheduled was April 10th, and this injury happened on April 6th. The 10th was the soonest they could get me in.
Wow.
And that had been scheduled a month prior to the injury. So it really was just, I don't know why that day, but it was that day. And I can't even say that I wish it had not taken me the time it took to get where I'm at. Like
Yeah.
everything that happened. And like I very much own the choices I made through it. But
Mhm.
now that I understand the power of owning your choices, like I just don't fuck
Yeah.
around with it anymore, if that
Right.
makes
Right.
sense.
Right. I love how you said that the power of owning your own choices.
Yeah, that's main character shit. Like I don't just the victimhood. I really see it as like a hood. Like you really are just like, you're just so
Yeah.
focused
Right.
on that train of thought. And the ability to take that down just, I mean, it opens up your entire perspective if you're willing. And it's
I love
scary. Like
that.
it is truthfully a very scary walk. That's again why queerly attached. This is not like for the faint of heart kind of shit. Like we're really getting down to this root stuff. We can label all the symptoms, right? Like we're over texting or like being called needy, but really we're just like afraid of, like all the avoidance, the anxiousness,
Mhm.
all of it is just symptoms of what the fuck is down here.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
let's have a look. And
Hmm.
and the reason why it's scary to do that is because the shame and judgment that comes on
Yeah.
just feels way too uncomfortable. It's easier to suppress it and just start a new story.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier to suppress it, and that's very short term, because when you
Yeah.
keep suppressing the body emotional, all emotions get stored in the body. That starts to create pain and disharmony,
Hmm.
and an imbalance, which is what disease is.
Yeah.
And so, queerly attached. And when you finally came to this epiphany, I got to create queerly attached. I mean, how did that happen actually?
Yeah. So I had done you mentioned the personal development school. Before this injury, I was a recreation therapist and I was on track to do my MSW and like go that route. Mental health space has always been something I've done. And I've always just been this like coach, teacher, just has always been. And so losing that job, which at the time I was working at a VA hospital, it was a fantastic job. I really enjoyed it. And so that happening, getting put on disability, as I started to understand this pain and that so much of it was mental stuff happening, the pain shifted.
Yeah.
And so I started to be like, okay, I know I have gifts and talents. And this thing,
Right.
particularly, and when I say thing, I mean educating, really lights me up. And it's a gift. I know that it's a gift. And so if I can use that, I know that I still am not able to do a 9 to 5. What can I create that will bring me joy and that will have impact? And truthfully, my biggest like ripple effect is that queer couples, queer relationships, queer connections, we deserve healthy, safe, secure ones. And there seems to be just this rampant amount of not that. And it doesn't seem like many people are speaking on it. And I know that when we start to do this attachment healing, there's no other choice but for it to affect your connections. And so if we can start back there, look at the impact that has on these couples, whether you're a couple who's like, we want to make it work and we keep having that conversation. Okay, let's make it safe. And then we see what about making it work, right? Like we've got to go back to this emotional safety standpoint. And since we haven't connected with ourselves, it makes sense we're trying to connect with everyone else. But that doesn't have that like long standing healthy thing that you're actually looking for and believe you deserve. That's the real thing, is that we all believe we deserve that. So
Yeah.
you're actually like doing the same thing I was doing. I believe I deserve this, but I'm not going to do the things to go get it. Right.
Yeah. It's like a contradiction.
It's a total contradiction. And so I just was like, boom, it's got to be talking about communication and relationships. That's 100% where I've seen the biggest impact of this. And heck yeah, I love talking about it. So queerly attached, yes, it's all rooted in this attachment, right? So secure attached, securely attached, queerly attached, you hear it. But yes, all of us have this attachment system, but queer attachment trauma is so much different, so much deeper that I think there's just not enough talk about it. So yeah, I'll be the guy. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about, so how is it
Yeah.
different? I mean, we now that you've been doing this for a while, I'm sure that
Yeah.
you already had this feeling and you've experienced this, your lived experience. What are the patterns that you've seen in queer relationships that are causing this type of
Mm.
attachment or non-attachment of relationship patterns?
Right. Well, I mean, you talked about being a Buddhist, right? And so
Mhm.
attachment is very rooted in Buddhism, but this idea that like if you're so attached to this thing, right? That means you're also so afraid to lose this thing. So anytime we're like functioning in this fear state, we're going to be like clinging, right?
Yeah.
Grasping for things, but we're
Right.
definitely not going to want to be letting go of things. And we're trying to control everything. So
Yeah.
how does that show up in relationships? So I was very anxious, preoccupied. So if attachment's on a spectrum, I was on the super anxious side,
Yeah.
which meant if we had beef, we were not going to sleep until we figured it out. Like, I don't care if it's 3 a.m., we're talking this through, right? But typically, when you're on such a far end of that thing, you're going to be drawing and attracting people on the other end of it. So I'm drawing and attracting avoidant people, right? Avoidant people don't want to stay up to 3 or more a.m. talking about what my feelings are and how
No,
I've
they don't.
processed them. And now let's
Right.
talk about it.
Right.
So if we keep attracting this opposite thing, there's something happening there. There's a pattern, right?
Yes.
A lot of times you can draw back to adult, when your parents and maybe you see something. I had one person I remember being very clear, I'm dating my father. Like it was so clear I'm dating my
Yeah.
dad. Right. And it's even deeper than just these like mother and father wounds. It really just goes back all the way down to what do you make it mean when
Yeah.
you're rejected or when you're abandoned? Right. And what
Yeah.
do
What
those
do
two
you make
things
it mean?
mean?
Right.
Right. What do you make it mean? And then the question that is even more important is, and what do you make that mean about you?
Yeah.
What do you make it mean about you when your parent is like, sit down, sit down, sit down. It's not your turn. It's not your turn. It's not your turn. Right? They're not telling you, shut up. I never want to hear from you again.
Right.
But at 4 or 5 years old, you're noticing that like it doesn't really feel good to have to keep being told to sit down, sit down. So you just learn, I just better be quiet. It'll be better if I'm just quiet. right? And then that starts to move into your friendships. And all of a sudden it's in your relationships. And you just know that every time you are afraid, you don't even know how to speak. And it's just
Yeah.
like, I don't even know how to express myself. And we blame ourselves like we're the problem, but we're
Right.
the pattern. Like we're just the pattern. So
We
the
are the
reason why I
pattern.
think that's exciting is that that also means you're the solution, right?
Exactly.
So in these relationships, when we're starting to see all this roller coaster type of like, we're together and then we're not together, but we're back together because we can't do no contact and we can't do, right? Like all these, it's lack of boundaries galore,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely right.
Lack of boundaries galore. And it's because we're all terrified. We're just all terrified.
Right.
And the fear is greater than the love of self, right? And if
Mhm.
both people don't
Yeah.
have this love of self, then we're just jamming on this fear vibe. And that's a awful frequency to ride on.
And that's definitely what keeps people into the anxiety of the push and the pull relationship.
Yep. Because you know exactly what to do, right? If you're the anxious one and then they push, well, I know what to do. I know how to get them back. I know how to,
Right.
right? And
And
then
that's
the avoidant
because
one
of
is
the
just like,
pattern that we've been used to. And
yeah,
so how does
it's
one start to
subconscious.
become aware of this pattern? How does one start to detach from that pattern?
Yeah. And the number one first thing is to pause
Hmm.
because those patterns are so deeply rooted that it'll just take it. Like it literally is subconscious strategy. So it is like our mind being like, I got it. I know what to do. And
Right.
oftentimes is going to be like handing you thought after thought to prove whatever the thing is, right? They're definitely leaving you because look, they didn't text you back in 2 hours. Like that's never happened. And right. And like by the end of it, you're in this complete spiral, right? And you've
Yeah.
probably already sent, if you're anxious, you've already sent like 50 text bombs you never should have sent. You've probably tried unsending, right? It's a mess. So
Right.
pause first, just pause because the first thing that we skip all the time when we're talking about emotions is the fact that it's a feeling, it's a sensation in your body.
Yeah, right, right.
It's like a literal, like something is speaking. And I think that's so cool. Like your body is literally like, hey, I have a message. And
Yes.
all the time we're just like, nope, no time for messengers. I got to figure this out. Right. But
Right.
the body is like trying to tell you what's going on. And
Right.
so when you pause and breathe, pause and breathe, it gives you a chance to really feel, truthfully feel. People a lot of times like, oh, well, I felt my feels. But what does it feel like? Like, what does it feel like to be sad? And we can't talk about it with words. Like anything that I say, like, it feels like this, that's just a thought.
Right.
But what does sad feel like? Like for me, sad often starts in my chest, right? It often is like a really achy feeling. And if I really pay attention to it, it'll go down to my stomach, right? And I have gotten into the practice of knowing what my body is talking to me about because it's 100% part of the journey. Like
It
none of
really
this
is.
matters without this vehicle we're in.
Oh yeah.
And it's such a cool ride. Like there's so many cool things about it. And because we didn't get taught all the features, right? We're just doing what we can with it because it seems like it's talking all the fucking time. We just want it to shut up,
It
right? We
is.
really
Yeah.
want it to be pleasant. That's really what we're seeking is like, I just need calm, please.
Oh yeah, right.
But if we're out here labeling everything good and bad and negative and positive, it's like, well, you're missing half the experience.
Hmm.
So
So the
pausing
first
and
thing is to
breathing.
pause. It really is. It's incredible to pause because you allow yourself to be more in the present moment, and being in that present moment is where you're going to be in the moment of receiving and really figuring out who you are and why we even have this physical meat body or this meat suit and what
Yeah.
we're
Well,
capable of. Yeah.
and if you're doing it in front of someone, right? Like let's say you are having that moment and your partner is across from you. Like let's get real about what that situation is. You're in a situation that feels uncomfortable and you're across from this person that you say you love. You're across from this person that you may have even said words like, I'd like to do this with you for all time, right? Like, so why is it so scary to say, oh, hold on a second, I need to pause. Ooh, my chest is feeling really.
Mhm.
I started practicing that when I was doing the attachment certification in the partnership that I was in. It
Mhm.
was a roller coaster relationship, and it was one where I had started to learn about my own nervous system,
Mhm.
and I had picked up on a pattern. If my heart, I started to call it jacked. If my heart got jacked, I had a really hard time like not losing the thread. If
Mhm.
I started to try and talk through that heart jack, I would probably end up interrupting you, misquoting you, right? And all the things that are triggering to you is
Right.
going to happen if I talk past this. So I would say, hold on a sec. And I would breathe into it, and I would literally communicate, my heart is jacked. I need to regulate before I can continue this conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And if I'm the one practicing that, I'm not going to just be like, peace out. Right. I'm like, I will come back when I'm regulated and able to talk. I cannot talk through this because I know that doesn't serve my goals. I know that doesn't serve the goals that we have as a couple. Right.
Right.
Why can't we do that? Why does that feel so vulnerable and scary?
Yeah. Right.
And if you really really want to get curious, ask that again with a really curious mind. Why?
Yeah. A really curious,
Why?
non-biased mind. So
Why is it so
yeah.
scary to say how I feel to my person? Right. And
Yeah.
like that's where you start to really get past this like nitty gritty avoidant bullshit. Like, let's get real. Why is it so unsafe?
Right.
Why is it so unsafe just to talk? Like that is such an illuminating question if you can really get to the bottom of that one with that curious mindset. I think that's the space where self-discovery comes. Half the time these conflicts get pushed through and we miss connection. That's what's so sad about it. Is conflict doesn't mean you can't connect, right? Conflict just means we're not seeing eye to eye right now. And the way we handle this is either going to go towards conflict or connection, right? Or is it going to go to contention or connection? Like we get to decide.
Get
And
to
if we
decide
both
which
choose
tree,
that, let's go that way. you
which
know,
conflict. Yeah.
contention, connection. Like it's a choice. And it's one that you have to make, but let's own it, right?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And so as you're speaking this, I mean, I've experienced some of these things as well, in some past relationships, but I do see these similar patterns in all relationships, not just queer relationships. So why did you
Yeah.
focus on queer relationships?
Yeah. So the reason why is because we are in this like comp het society, right? And heteronormative society is not also dealing with having to prove their existence,
Hmm.
right? They're not being parentally rejected, religious abandonment, religious trauma recovery. Yes, everyone can go through that, but it's different when God is saying you being yourself can go to hell, right?
Hmm.
Like those are added layers. Again, it's all about meaning making, right? So if you're
Right.
growing up in environments where rejection for being self-accepting
Yeah.
is dealt out, yeah, no, you're not. You're going to learn to self-abandon really quick.
Oh
And so
yeah.
that is just an entirely different level of trauma that happens sometimes in closets. And I often say, like, hey, we are fucking resilient. Like, we really are resilient people. We will push through.
Hmm.
But there truly is courage in a coming out story, and also courage in talking about the trauma that happened while you're being in,
Hmm.
right? And not just talking about it, because we'll all connect on that trauma. We can all go, yeah, my parents did this and my church said that. We can. But what really makes you who you are is not the trauma, it's how you healed from that space,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So that's where the queer community, there's a reason why queer joy is a thing. Like straight society cannot understand that level of joy
Hmm.
because they don't have that queer pain, which is to say, you don't get to exist unless we vote on it, talk about it, politicize it, right? All these things that it's just not something that has to be dealt with.
And so when we overcome from these standards that heteronormative society uh, places the LGBTQ plus community, and we're able to overcome this and come into our authentic wholeness, that's when we experience true joy, and that's the gayness that they all see,
Yeah,
our
right.
inner
They can't
gayness.
stand pride, right? They're like, we don't understand why you need it. Of course not. And you should be very, very grateful you don't need to understand it,
Hmm.
right? To have your existence questioned is
Yeah, they don't have
such
heterosexual prides,
right.
pride
But they
events,
wouldn't need it. They wouldn't
parades.
need. They're
Yeah,
not marginalized. They're not
right,
like.
right,
There's
right.
nothing that's saying like you can't do whatever the hell you want, right? We are hearing that message all the time, whether it's being spoken or not. Even when you down to the smallest things, right? Like people yelling shit at you still. I have a friend who a year ago, she's a 40-year-old woman driving a truck, had high schoolers yelling slurs at her because she had a pride sticker, tiny little pride sticker. She was in Idaho though. There's
Mhm.
not a lot of queer people out there, not a lot of queer representation. And so she still is having to put up with crap like that in 2024, right? And we talk like, sure, it's getting better, but the facts are this stuff is my son is 11. They're still calling kids gay at school, right?
Yeah.
Gay as in stupid. Like
Mhm.
someone's passing that shit on. If we're not allowed to say LOL or like put that in, like we can let shit go, but
Yeah.
it's odd the things that we won't let go, right?
Sure.
So that type of stuff just continues to pass on. Yes, it's traumatic, and that's okay. We're not going to be victimhooding this shit, but we are going to own the fact, hey, the way that I've made this stuff mean stuff about me is
Yeah.
affecting my relationships. I don't want to do that anymore. It's
Yeah.
affecting how I feel in my own freaking body, right? Like
Kyleigh,
it's not the empowered place I like to stand in.
I'm curious right now with your clientele, and right now you said it's getting better, but it's not getting better politically right now at the moment.
No,
And so
not
is this triggering people with their attachment? It is.
yes.
So what
Yes,
what
it's massive.
what are you seeing the shift has changed with people in
Oh,
relationships, their attachment styles, and the political climate?
well, I mean, straight. I know people who have gotten married quicker than they plan to, just because they would like to be able to do that while it's still legal, right? Like those are again, those are not choices that other parts of society are being faced with. So,
Mhm.
how is it impacting the amount of fear that you can just feel?
Oh
And
yeah.
it's being spoken. I don't know if you're still in like social media spaces, but yeah, it's being spoken. People are terrified, right? But
Oh yeah.
here's where I'm trying to be a voice is that we do get to choose which frequency we live on.
Yeah.
And the frequency that we choose is going to determine how we feel about our day. So that's
Absolutely.
not meaning to turn a blind eye. Yes, shit is terrible out there right now. But we also understand that part of it is meant to feel that way. They're trying to make it feel that way,
Yeah.
right? And so, okay, all right. Well, I see you don't have to play into that plan, right? Anytime
Right.
we're like dealing with like imposter syndrome or perfectionism, I've got a friend who's just like, fuck that. That's just white supremacy and patriarchy. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a great point. That's
Yeah.
a great point. We don't have time for that shit. I don't want to
Right.
be part of that.
Yeah.
So for myself, I just choose the frequency I want and I don't fuck around with that lower stuff. Like I
There
just
you
don't,
go.
and I try and invite people up to that. Now
Oh,
that's not
high
meaning that
five. I'll
we're
give you a
like,
double high five
you,
on that.
you have
Yeah.
to, right? Because otherwise we know what happens if we sit with fear and if we hold on to these things, we know
Yeah.
what happens. It's so much less about regulating anything and just allowing the experience. And then the thing that's cool about emotions, especially, is they want to move and release. Like they don't
Oh
want to
yeah.
be housed in your body.
No, they don't.
They don't
No,
want to
they
be there
don't.
at all. They just want and they want to go.
Yeah.
And being part of that allowance has
Mhm.
really given me creative power.
You know, I had to write this down. Emotions don't want to be housed in your body.
They
That's
sure
incredible.
don't.
And that's why disease occurs.
Exactly why.
This is really incredible, and thanks so much for bringing this up as far as like that's not the vibe you want to be on because that's really the answer to overcoming a lot of what's going on right now with the political climate. Just stick with the high vibration, stick with the frequency, as you mentioned earlier. Get out of that victimhood, take the hood off, and don't need to be in a tunnel vision. Look around you; the sun is still going to shine, and the moon is still going
Yes.
to come out at night. And in doing so, you just do whatever you can to keep the self-love up because when you do that, I mean, we're gonna overcome no matter what. We've overcome this. I mean, history repeats itself. At the end, we're still holding hands.
Mm.
So, I mean, this is really it's really beautiful that you're talking this way, that you're feeling this way, and that this is the message that you're giving to humanity. Thank you so much for your energy.
Thank you. And hey, you mentioned the sun and moon. If you get out there under the sun or moon, like really stand under it. Like really think about that fact that there is this like bright star
I know, right?
close enough to have you feeling warmth. Like
Yeah.
stuff like that, man. Like you just can't help but like, okay, I see there's all this chaos out here, but like which parts of this can I actually control? There's really so few that you can control of any of it. And so really just backing it down to what can I bring to a space that has just really given me the purpose to just stay aligned. It just feels really good to be aligned. Anything else feels like friction. So yeah, go stand in the sun, man, and like look up and just fucking bask in it.
So you said stay aligned because anything else feels like friction. How do you stay aligned? You personally?
Well, I have to know what the goal is. I do think of myself as a coach, right? So if I'm
Yeah.
saying I'm aligned to something, what's the goal? So for myself, my goal is not to self-abandon. So
Okay.
I have to remain very clear on what my needs and boundaries are. So I got real clear on what those are.
Mm-hmm.
And then in those moments of fear and in those moments, because to be secure doesn't mean you're like perfect. It just means you're practiced at it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So in those moments, I practice what a secure Kyleigh would do. And that often means facing fear.
Yeah, right.
Like, I mean, you can't be courageous if there's no fear present, you know?
Right, exactly. So fear definitely presents itself as an opportunity for us to be courageous. I love
Yeah,
this.
it does. I mean, I kind of say all the time, I joke to my therapist, I'm just like, for me personally, if I see the cliff, like whatever the fear is, I think of it as this cliff. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Because I
Yeah.
know that there's something there waiting for me, you
Yeah.
know, like, and I also offer kindness to the parts of me that have been like either hiding that fear or protecting that fear. They're doing what they're meant to do, which is to keep me surviving. Right. But
Yeah.
my definition of survival and thriving, like those continue to change. And we do what we do until we want something more. And getting aligned, you've got to get clear on what you want. And if you want peace, if you want calm, if you want content, you have to understand what those things feel like, or you'll never arrive.
What does that feel like to you?
Ooh, my body shook because that's what it feels like to me. Like when I am really truly like in a space of, I do think of it as like blank canvas in my head. I think of my head as like a stage. And so I get to decide who's on the stage. But those moments where it is just like, wow, I really am in control right now, which is to say, I'm allowing what's happening. That's all I mean by control.
Yeah.
It feels like tingly, starts in the back of my neck and goes down my spine. Maybe it's a Kundalini awakening, who
Yeah.
knows? But it is this like, it's an energy. It's an energy. And for me, sometimes it comes out my fingertips. Like I can feel it moving. And as I started to really tune into what those emotions felt like to me, it's the same with the ones that we call negative. They also tingle and move and want to release. And like, it's just about allowing instead of labeling. Yes, words have to come at some point, but giving space to the sensation has really helped me like tune into the experience that I'm having.
Kylie, I love this. So, and I really feel and resonate with what you just said because it's overjoy and even being anxious about a fearful situation or perhaps this might happen can feel in the body the same, but a lot of it, as you mentioned earlier, is the meaning that you give to it. And if you're able to just see it and let that feeling pass through your body, then you're able to really live. You're really able to live.
You're living, you're
Yeah.
literally like being instead of
Yeah.
doing, right? Like we're
Right. Right.
constantly like, what are we supposed to be doing? I'm like, you're just supposed to be, you're just supposed to be. Right. And we don't even need permission for that. And we wait and wait and wait for this permission. And there is none. It's just yours. And that's the thing with queer joy. Like it truly is a right to claim. Like you have to claim it. And the only way to achieve that, you can get it in spurts if you go to a bar in the queer community. You'll get it in spurts. But if you want that queer joy that's like, this is mine and it's sustaining, you only get that by facing up with this queer pain. That's the only way. It's just two sides of the same coin. And there might be a gap. And I say to mind that gap because the bigger that gap is, like the greater your suffering, most likely.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So really, really deciding I have pain and I'm not scared of it is such an empowering move.
It really is. And then if you're able to just see the pain and you're not scared of it, you're able to let it pass.
Yeah. And saying to yourself, I am safe to feel this. I am safe to feel this. My body is safe. If you have to look around and like notice the roof over your head, whatever it is, but the body, the nervous system is literally like, we're going to die if we feel or think about this. Right. And so we have to remind the body by pausing and breathing that
Right.
we're going to survive this.
And when you
Right.
do
And
that, you also, I mean, you take your power back and you also acknowledge your body and how resilient and beautiful and strong our bodies are. And our body wants to know this. It wants to feel this and it wants to
mm,
know that we trust it.
trust. It's so much the trust. That's exactly the story that you've shared about your body, the story that I've shared about mine. It's trust.
It is.
I was functioning with my body betrayed me. My body hates me. My body's broken. My body doesn't work. And guess what? It continued to show up that way.
There
Right.
you go.
As soon as I started believing that my body is healing, that my body is capable, that my body has boundaries, being a person on disability or having a person like a 1 in a million genetic disorder that's going to continue to fuck up stuff in your life. I'm someone who's going to always be having back surgeries. Every 2 months, I go get my pain pump, right? Blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean that that's who you are, right? Like that
Exactly.
is part of your experience.
Mhm.
And if you can accept the reality that this is, period, then decide what it means, right? Instead of this is this and it should be this. That's
Mhm.
suffering.
Oh yeah.
That's just
All the
suffering.
shoulds, the musts, the ought tos, that's all suffering.
It's yeah. So the turning back in and really being like, even if it is to say, I don't trust my body. Okay, fantastic. Let's find out why, right?
Mhm.
There's no judgment to that, but let's find out why. What do you want? You want to trust your body? Is that your goal? Okay, let's get aligned with that. How
Yeah.
do we start to trust our body? And we start to lay out the step. I mean, that's the work with the clients. What is it you want? And
Yeah.
let's step it out. It's just timeline shit, man, and we can get you there. It's so cool.
Oh my goodness, Kylie, I love your energy and I love this connection that I have gained here with you. Thank you so
Oh,
much
it's been
for sharing
awesome. I really appreciate
your
it. Thanks for
incredible
letting
bright
me.
light. So I've got a poem to share that I wrote. I've been writing poetry since I was about 5 years old, and every episode I meditate before and I welcome your energy and then I feel into it and I write a poem. So this poem is dedicated to our interview today.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. I'm on fire, and nothing can burn me down. For this fire was ignited out of love and not hate. This love was ignited to lift my light and lift the light of others. This fire creates life, a life that I was born to experience. After rising from ashes of the past, now I anticipate taking off my mask and teaching you how to ignite your inner fire. Stay a while, drop your fears, and let's walk a mile.
Oof. Is that you wrote that right now?
I wrote that about 5 minutes before you came on. Yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful. It spoke
Thank you
so
so
much to
much.
my heart. Thank you. I received that. That was beautiful.
Thank you. Well, thanks to
Ooh,
your energy. That's where this came from. It comes from your energy, or just feeling
wow.
into your story and everything. So thank you so much for igniting that passion within me.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for receiving it. So
Mm.
how can our watchers, our viewers, our listeners get a hold of you? And if they need some incredible attachment, detachment, curiosity on how to live their life and their relationships with themselves and others.
Yeah, so I'm at Queerly Attached, like on all the socials, and I've got my own podcast out, Queerly Attached podcast.
Oh,
You can
I
find it
love
on
this.
all the places you listen to podcasts. I only have 3 episodes under my belt and lots in the editing bin, but we're getting it out there. And do you know what? I am honestly booked out. I have so many interviews, like not as a guest. I'm saying people coming on mine to share similar stories also, like I love talking about relationships. So I talk a little bit about pop culture and stuff that's going on, the attachment stuff I see in a lot of these like reality shows. I like talking about that stuff. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying it. I've had good response. So
Excellent. Queerly attached podcast. Well, I can't wait to tune in.
yeah, check it
So
out.
much for sharing your energy here on a Little Less Fear podcast. Wishing you and your loved ones love and light and looking forward to keeping in touch with you.
All right. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks, Doc.
Yeah, I
That was
appreciate
so
you.
good. That was so fun.
I
Thank
know,
you.
wasn't it? Yeah, thank you.
It's so good times. I mean, I just love it. It was great. I
I
really did
love you
appreciate
too.
it. You were great interviewer too. I really
Oh,
liked that.
thanks. Give me one moment. Love you so much. Thank you so much for being on a Little Less Fear podcast. Let's stay connected. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to a Little Less Fear podcast. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Tell your friends and your family about a Little Less Fear podcast. And if you are interested in being on my show, feel free to leave me an email at a little less fear at gmail.com. Or if you have any questions or comments and you also want to leave me an additional message, you can also do so from my website, leaving an inquiry at www.alittlelessfear.com. You can get a copy of my book on Amazon, Amazon Kindle, and Amazon Kindle Unlimited, also titled A Little Less Fear. And thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate all the support. Leave me a review if you get a chance. I love to receive feedback, questions, and comments. And any way that I can be of support to you, please let me know. Thank you so much. I love you. Wishing you love, light, happiness, and many blessings your way.